All right, so we're diving into this study in Austria guide.
Sounds exciting.
Yeah, imagine like swapping your usual study spot for the Austrian Alps,
No.
right? Exploring these vibrant cities.
Oh,
You
yeah.
get this affordable tuition.
Really? Affordable tuition in Europe?
That's what they're saying.
Yeah.
So Austria might be calling your name,
I can see the appeal for sure.
So we're going to unpack all the essentials from this guide.
Okay.
It's by the OEAD.
OEAD.
Yeah, Austria's Agency for International Mobility and Education.
So basically like the gurus of studying abroad in Austria.
Pretty much, yeah.
Sounds like they've got it all covered.
Yeah, they go into everything from degree programs to like just daily student life.
But why Austria specifically? I mean, Europe has tons of amazing places to study, right?
Right. Well, besides those like picture-perfect landscapes that we all think of,
Yeah.
the guide really emphasizes Austria's strong social safety net,
Okay.
like a really stable economy.
Makes sense.
And apparently, Austrians are known for being pretty welcoming to international students.
Oh, that's good to hear.
Yeah, so they're painting a picture of a country that's not just beautiful, but also like safe and supportive.
Yeah. That's huge when you're far from home.
Totally.
So it's about the whole package then, not just academics.
Exactly.
Makes sense. Feeling secure and comfortable can make a world of difference.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Okay, but let's talk about those academics for a bit.
Right.
What does Austria's higher education system actually look like?
It's actually surprisingly diverse.
Oh,
Yeah. The guide breaks it down into 4 main types of institutions.
okay.
So you've got your public universities, private universities,
Okay.
universities of applied sciences,
Right.
and then they even have dedicated university colleges of teacher education.
Interesting.
Public universities seem to be like the most common,
Yeah.
and they cover like a massive range of disciplines.
Okay.
Everything from like the humanities to engineering, medicine, and the arts.
Pretty standard, yeah.
Hmm.
But I am intrigued by these dedicated universities. What does that even mean?
It's kind of wild, actually.
Okay.
They have universities specifically for things like veterinary medicine
Wow.
and natural resources.
A whole institution just focused on that one field.
Yeah, like imagine that.
That's fascinating.
I know, right?
It suggests like a real commitment to specialized expertise in those areas.
Yeah.
Maybe it reflects Austria's focus on specific industries
Uh-huh.
or research priorities.
Yeah, for sure.
Could be amazing if you're passionate about those fields.
Totally.
What about private universities? Are they a big deal in Austria?
They exist,
Okay.
but on a smaller scale.
Okay.
The guide highlights they have smaller class sizes,
Yeah.
more personalized attention, which can be a big draw for some students.
Right.
They're also known for being a bit more innovative with their programs.
Interesting.
For example, they mentioned the Sigmund Freud University Vienna,
Oh, wow.
offering degrees in psychology,
Makes sense.
psychotherapy science,
Of course.
and even human medicine.
Yeah. Austria's intellectual history in psychology and psychoanalysis is famous.
Totally.
It's interesting how a country's heritage can shape its educational landscape.
Oh, yeah, I know, right?
Now let's shift gears to the Universities of Applied Sciences, or UAS.
Okay.
They seem to be all about like practical skills,
Yeah.
career preparation.
Mhm.
That's right. The guide emphasizes their strong professional orientation,
Yeah.
and they actually mention that internships are mandatory in their program.
Oh, wow.
That's awesome.
I know. It's a fantastic way to gain real-world experience before you even graduate.
Absolutely.
I was so surprised to learn that they offer over 650 degree programs.
Wow, that's a lot.
And get this, about 80 of those programs are taught entirely in English.
Wow, that's a significant number.
Right.
It seems like Austria is making a real effort to attract international students,
Mm.
even those who aren't fluent in German.
Exactly.
Speaking of which, what about the university colleges of teacher education? Is that a common path in Austria?
It seems like these colleges specifically train teachers for like the primary and secondary levels.
Mm-hmm.
And they have this unique cooperative network system.
Cooperative network.
Yeah.
What's that all about?
So instead of each college operating independently,
Right.
they're divided into 4 networks,
Okay.
and they collaborate really closely with universities.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's designed to ensure high-quality teacher training
Yeah,
and like a really smooth transition from theory to practice.
I see.
Even in teacher education, Austria emphasizes collaboration.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
Sounds like a very holistic approach to education.
I know, right?
So we've got a pretty good picture of the types of institutions,
Mhm.
but what about the degrees themselves? What
Right.
can you actually earn in Austria?
Well, they have your standard bachelor's and master's degrees,
Okay.
which are aligned with something called the Bologna process.
Ah, yes, the Bologna
Have you
process.
heard of that?
Yeah, so it's basically a system for standardizing higher education across Europe. Great.
Making degrees more comparable and transferable?
Okay.
That's super helpful for students who want to study in multiple countries
Yeah.
or pursue international careers.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
The guide also mentions traditional degrees,
Okay.
which lead to titles like Magister
Interesting.
or Diplôme Ingénieur.
I have to admit, I'm not super familiar with those.
Yeah, me neither.
What's it?
I was wondering the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So traditional degrees are often more common in like specific fields,
Okay.
and they might have a longer duration than a bachelor's or master's program.
Okay.
They usually last between like 4 to 6 years
Oh, wow.
and tend to be more research oriented.
So it's almost like choosing between a more general or specialized track.
Exactly.
Okay.
Depending on your field of study
Yeah.
and your career aspirations.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And of course, for like the super academic types,
Yeah.
they also have doctoral studies,
Right.
which lead to a doctor or PhD. Of course, those are for students who are really passionate about research
Yeah.
and who want to pursue academic careers.
Mhm.
The guide mentions that some doctoral programs are even offered jointly with institutions outside Austria.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Which could be amazing for students who want international research experience.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
It seems like Austria offers quite a few options for building a global academic profile.
Absolutely.
But let's face it,
Yeah.
getting into these programs is probably the trickiest part.
Yeah, the application process can be daunting.
I know. So what does the guide say about that whole process?
Okay, well, first things first. Deadlines.
Yeah.
If you're aiming for a university, September 5th is the cutoff for the winter semester,
Got it.
and February 5th for the summer semester.
Yeah.
However, keep in mind that other institutions,
Yeah.
like those UAS we talked about, might have different deadlines.
So rule number 1, check those deadlines early and often. What about entrance requirements?
Yeah.
What do you generally need to get your foot in the door?
It varies, of course.
Oh, yeah.
You'll need a general university entrance qualification,
Mm-hmm.
but some programs might have specific subject prerequisites,
Right.
especially competitive ones like medicine.
Okay.
For example, you might need to show strong grades in biology, chemistry, or physics.
It makes sense that certain programs would have higher standards
Yeah,
or specific requirements.
absolutely.
And then there are the dreaded entrance examinations.
Well, yes, those are common for programs like architecture,
yeah.
biology, and, of course, medicine.
Mm-hmm.
They're designed to assess your aptitude and preparedness for the specific program.
So it's not just about grades.
Right.
You have to prove you've got the skills and knowledge to succeed.
Exactly.
But on a positive note,
Yeah.
the guide says many universities offer online data registration.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. That sounds like it could streamline things a bit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It makes the initial steps of the application process much smoother.
Yeah.
And it allows you to track your application's progress.
That's really helpful.
Yeah. So while applying to universities abroad can be intimidating,
For sure.
it seems like Austria is trying to make the process as user-friendly as possible.
That's good to hear.
Yeah,
But the real adventure begins once you're accepted, right?
absolutely.
What does the guide say about what life is actually like as an international student in Austria?
Well, let's start with the not-so-fun part.
Oh, no.
Residence permits.
Here we go.
If you're not and UI's a Swiss national,
Right.
you'll need one to stay in Austria for your studies.
Okay.
The guide goes into detail about the specific procedures and deadlines,
Right.
even outlining different processes for students who need a visa to enter Austria versus those who don't.
I bet that's where things can start to feel overwhelming.
It can be a lot to take in.
Yeah, what kind of documents do you need for this residence permit?
It's a bit of a laundry list.
Okay.
You'll need a completed application form,
All right.
a valid passport,
Okay.
birth certificate.
It's certificate of good conduct, proof of health insurance,
Not it.
and of course your notification of admission from the Austrian university.
Okay, so far so good.
Right.
What about finances?
Yeah.
Do you need to prove you can support yourself while studying?
Absolutely. Demonstrating financial stability is crucial.
Okay.
You'll need to provide proof of sufficient funds to cover your living costs for 12 months in advance.
Oh, wow.
The specific amount can vary, but as of 2019, it was around 515 euros per month for students under 24
Okay,
and 933 euros for those older.
got it.
And of course, you'll need to show that you have accommodation lined up,
Right.
whether it's a rental agreement, a student dormitory contract,
Yeah.
or even a confirmation from a youth hostel.
Wow. They really want to make sure you're all set.
They do.
It sounds like they've thought of just about everything.
They've certainly tried.
Yeah.
But before we get too ahead of ourselves,
Okay.
we should probably delve a bit deeper into the different types of residence permits and visas involved. You're right, we need more details.
Yeah, and there's a whole other world to explore when it comes to student life in Austria.
That's true.
Yeah.
We'll have to save that for part 2 of our deep dive.
Yeah, sounds good.
But for now, it seems like Austria offers a pretty compelling blend of academic opportunities
Yeah,
and a supportive environment.
definitely.
Definitely worth considering for anyone dreaming of studying abroad.
I agree.
Welcome back to our deep dive into studying in Austria.
Last time we talked about the different types of universities
Right.
and degrees you can find in Austria.
We even touched on the application process
Right.
and those dreaded residence permits.
Yeah, and that's actually where we'll pick up today.
Okay.
Because the guide goes into a lot more detail about residence permits,
Right.
especially if you're not an UE or Swiss national.
So for those of us who need a residence permit to study in Austria,
Yeah.
what are like the key things we need to know?
Okay.
The guide mentioned different procedures depending on whether you need a visa to enter Austria or not.
Exactly. Let's start with students who do need a visa.
Okay.
The first step is to apply for a residence permit for study purposes.
And this needs to happen before you even set foot in Austria, right?
Absolutely. You'll need to submit your application to the Austrian Representative Authority,
Okay.
usually an embassy or consulate in your home country.
Got it.
The guide even recommends doing this like 3 to 6 months before your intended arrival
Wow.
because the processing time can vary.
So planning ahead is key.
For sure.
What exactly do you need to include in this application?
Well, besides the usual suspects like a completed application form,
Okay.
a valid passport, birth certificate,
Okay.
and certificate of good conduct.
Okay.
They'll also need proof of health insurance.
Right.
And of course, that notification of admission from your Austrian university.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
What about finances? Do you need to show you have enough money to cover your expenses while studying?
Yes. Demonstrating financial stability is really crucial. You'll need to provide proof of sufficient funds to cover your living costs for 12 months in advance.
12 months. Wow.
The guide mentions that as of 2019, the required amount was around 515 euros per month for students under 24
Okay.
and 933 euros for those older.
Got it. So make sure you've got those bank statements ready.
Definitely.
And what about accommodation? Do you need to have a place lined up before you apply?
You do. The guide emphasizes the importance of providing proof of accommodation.
Okay.
This could be a rental agreement,
Right.
a student dormitory contract,
Right.
or even a confirmation of a room reservation in a youth hostel.
Okay.
If you're planning to stay with relatives or friends, you'll need a specific accommodation agreement form
Oh, okay.
filled out and included with your application.
It seems like they're really dotting their I's and crossing their T's when it comes to this process.
Yeah, they want to make sure everything is in order.
So once you've submitted your residence permit application, what happens next?
Well, the Austrian authorities will review your application,
Okay.
and if everything checks out,
Yeah.
you'll be granted a residence permit.
And then you can, like, book your flight and pack your bags?
Not so fast.
Oh, what else?
If you needed a visa to enter Austria in the first place,
Right.
you'll also need to apply for a Visa D.
Visa D.
Yeah, which specifically allows you to travel to Austria for your studies.
Ah, I see. So there are two separate applications. One for the residence permit and then one for the visa.
Correct.
Got it. Okay.
Once you arrive in Austria,
Mm-hmm.
you'll need to pick up your residence permit from the local authorities.
Okay.
It's super important to do this within the validity period of your visa.
Got it. No time for procrastination.
Nope.
Now, what about students who don't need a visa to enter Austria?
Right.
Does the process look any different for them?
It's a bit more streamlined.
Okay.
They can enter Austria without a visa
Right.
and then apply for their residence permit once they're already in the country.
Right. So they can handle everything on Austrian soil,
Exactly.
which sounds a lot less stressful.
It can be, but they still need to gather all the same documents
Right.
and meet the same requirements as those who applied from abroad.
That makes sense. Now, the guide also mentions a specific scenario I found interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Students who have to take an entrance examination before being fully admitted to a program.
Right.
How does that affect the residence permit process?
Good question. So this applies mainly to students applying to universities of the arts.
Okay.
But other programs like architecture or medicine might have entrance exams as well.
Got it. So how does it work?
Okay, so it starts with the university issuing a conditional letter of admission.
Okay.
Based on your initial application,
Uh-huh.
you then use this conditional letter,
Wow.
along with all the other standard documents,
Okay.
to apply for a residence permit at the Austrian representative authority in your home country.
So it's like a pre-approval.
Exactly.
But your admission isn't fully confirmed until you pass the entrance exam.
Correct. And even with this conditional admission,
Yeah.
you still need to show proof of sufficient funds and accommodation,
Okay.
just like any other applicant.
Got it.
Once your residence permit is approved, you can apply for that visa D to travel to Austria for the exam.
Okay. And if you pass the exam, what happens then?
Congratulations.
Yeah.
You'll need to provide the official letter of admission
All right.
along with your financial and accommodation documents to the residence authority in Austria
Okay.
to receive your full residence permit.
It's a multi-step process for sure, but at least the guide lays out each stage clearly.
It does. It's very thorough.
And remember, for those who don't need a visa to enter Austria,
Right.
they can take the entrance exam without a visa and apply for the residence permit afterward.
Exactly.
That's good to know. Okay, so we've covered the ins and outs of residence permits.
Yeah, those are definitely important.
What about student life in Austria?
Oh, yeah.
What does the guide say about that?
Well, it highlights the Austrian Student Union, or OH, as a key resource for international students.
I've heard of student unions before, but what exactly do they do?
Think of it as the national student representation body in Austria.
Okay.
It advocates for students' rights, provides support services,
Right.
and even helps students find affordable accommodation.
So it's like a one-stop shop for all things student-related.
Pretty much, yeah. The OH can help you navigate the Austrian higher education system,
Okay.
access student discounts,
Right.
and even connect with other students.
That sounds incredibly helpful.
It is,
Yeah.
especially when you're new to a country.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
What about student clubs and organizations? Is there like a vibrant student scene in Austria?
Definitely.
Okay.
Austrian universities offer a wide range of clubs and organizations, catering to diverse interests from sports and music to politics and culture.
Wow, that's awesome.
It's a great way to meet like-minded people
Yeah.
and explore your passions outside of academics.
It's all about finding that balance between hitting the books
Exactly.
and experiencing Austrian life to the fullest.
Absolutely. And speaking of Austrian life,
Yeah.
don't forget about the incredible cultural immersion opportunities.
Right.
Austria has a rich history, stunning architecture,
Yeah.
and a vibrant arts scene.
It's a beautiful country.
It is. Take advantage of your time there to explore museums,
Wow.
attend concerts, and just soak up the atmosphere.
It sounds like Austria offers a really well-rounded experience for students.
I think so.
But with all this talk about student life, I'm curious.
Yeah.
Are there any specific challenges or things that students should be aware of before heading to Austria?
That's a great question, and it's something the guide doesn't explicitly address.
Oh, really?
One thing to consider is the cultural adjustment.
Right.
Austria, while geographically small, has diverse cultural landscape.
So different regions might have their own distinct customs and traditions.
Absolutely. And beyond regional differences,
Yeah.
there are also those subtle social norms that can be tricky to navigate.
Oh, I see.
For example, Austrians tend to be quite formal in their interactions,
Okay.
especially with strangers.
So no calling your professor by their first name,
Probably not.
even if they seem super chill.
Right. Being mindful of those cultural cues can help you avoid any unintentional faux pas.
Good point. And I imagine humor doesn't always translate perfectly across cultures either.
That's another potential pitfall.
Yeah.
Austrian humor can be quite dry and sarcastic,
Oh, okay.
which might not be immediately obvious to someone from a different background.
So if your Austrian friend cracks a joke that seems a little off,
Yeah.
they might just be expressing their affection in a uniquely Austrian way.
Exactly. It's all part of the learning experience.
Right.
And honestly, embracing those cultural differences,
Yeah.
even the ones that seem a bit quirky at first, is
Right.
what makes studying abroad so enriching.
It's about expanding your horizons
Absolutely.
and opening yourself up to new ways of seeing the world.
I agree.
Speaking of expanding horizons, we've talked about the importance of learning German. Even if your program is in English.
It's a good idea.
But how much German do you really need to know to get by?
Well, the guide recommends aiming for at least a B2 level of German,
Okay.
which allows you to understand and participate in everyday conversations.
Okay.
But the more German you know, the better.
So it's not just about ordering a coffee or asking for directions.
Right.
It's about being able to have meaningful interactions with locals
Exactly.
and truly immersing yourself in the culture.
It's an investment that will pay off in countless ways.
Totally.
It'll make your life easier,
Yeah.
open up more opportunities,
Yeah.
and enhance your overall experience.
Well said.
Yeah.
I think we've covered just about everything a prospective student needs to know about studying in Austria,
I think we have.
from the academic landscape
Yeah.
to the cultural nuances and potential challenges.
We've gone beyond the guidebook to provide a more holistic perspective,
Definitely.
highlighting not only the exciting aspects, but also the things that require a bit more preparation and awareness.
Our goal was to equip you, the listener, with the knowledge and confidence to make informed decisions
Exactly.
and embark on your own Austrian adventure.
Because studying abroad is so much more than just earning a degree.
Right.
It's about personal growth,
Yeah.
cultural exploration, and creating memories that will last a lifetime.
So do your research plan ahead, embrace the unknown,
Yes,
and most importantly, enjoy the journey.
Austria awaits.
Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into study in Austria.
We've covered a lot of ground, haven't we?
Yeah, from like the excitement of choosing a program to the more like logistical stuff like visas and residence permits.
Yeah, and of course we explored that vibrant student life
Right.
and some of the cultural quirks that make Austria so unique.
But like you said earlier, there's always more to the story.
Yeah.
Life rarely goes exactly according to plan, and studying abroad can throw some unexpected challenges your way.
Absolutely. So today, let's go beyond the guidebook a little bit.
Okay.
Talk about those what-if moments.
Yeah, the stuff that might not be spelled out in black and white, but is still important to consider.
Right. For example, the guide mentions that exceeding the scheduled duration of your program can lead to higher tuition fees.
Right.
But what happens if you need to, take a semester off for personal reasons?
Yeah, life happens.
It absolutely does. And in those situations, the most important thing is to communicate with your university's international office.
Right away.
As soon as possible, don't just try to disappear and hope for the best.
So no going off the grid and hoping no one notices.
Definitely not.
Okay.
Being open and proactive is key.
Got it.
The international office can guide you through the proper procedures for taking a leave of absence.
Okay.
Explain any potential implications for your residence permit, and clarify whether any fees might apply.
So it sounds like they're there to help you navigate those tricky situations.
Exactly. They're a great resource.
Now, another thing that struck me is how the guide touches upon cultural adjustment,
Yeah,
but doesn't really dive deep into it.
it's true. Moving to a new country, even one as welcoming as Austria,
Right.
can be a bit of a culture shock.
It can be a big adjustment for sure.
And what's interesting about Austria is that despite its small size,
Yeah.
it has a surprisingly diverse cultural landscape.
Oh, really?
Yeah, each region has its own distinct traditions,
Okay.
dialects, and even cuisine.
So Vienna might feel completely different from Salzburg,
Uh-huh.
and Innsbruck might have its own unique vibe.
Exactly.
Wow.
And it's not just about regional differences.
Right.
It's about navigating those everyday social norms and customs
Yeah.
that might catch you off guard.
Okay, like what?
For instance, Austrians tend to be quite formal in their interactions,
Okay.
especially with strangers.
So even if your professor seems super friendly,
Yeah.
you probably shouldn't call them by their first name right off the bat.
Right. It's all about being observant and respectful of those subtle cultural cues to avoid any unintentional faux pas.
Good point.
Yeah.
And I imagine humor doesn't always translate perfectly across cultures either.
That's another potential pitfall.
Right.
Austrian humor can be quite dry and sarcastic,
Oh.
which might not be immediately obvious to someone from a different background.
So if your Austrian friend cracks a joke that seems a little off,
Yeah.
it might just be expressing their affection in a uniquely Austrian way.
Exactly. It's all part of the learning experience.
It's all part of the adventure.
It is. And honestly,
Yeah.
embracing those cultural differences,
Uh,
even the ones that seem a bit quirky at first,
yeah.
is what makes studying abroad so enriching.
It's about expanding your horizons and opening yourself up to new ways of seeing the world.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
Speaking of expanding horizons, we've talked about the importance of learning German.
Even if your program is in English.
Right. But how much German do you really need to know to get by?
Well, the guide recommends aiming for at least a B2 level of German,
Okay.
which allows you to understand and participate in everyday conversations.
Right.
But the more German you know, the better.
So it's not just about ordering a coffee or asking for directions.
Right.
It's about being able to have meaningful interactions with locals
Exactly.
and truly immersing yourself in the culture.
It's an investment that will pay off in countless ways.
Absolutely.
It'll make your life easier, open up more opportunities,
Yeah,
and enhance your overall experience.
I think that's a great note to end on.
I agree.
We've talked about the academic landscape, the cultural nuances,
The potential challenges.
and hopefully we've given you a well-rounded picture of what to expect if you're thinking about studying in Austria.
Because ultimately,
Yeah,
studying abroad is about so much more than just getting a degree.
really is.
It's about personal growth, cultural exploration, and creating memories that will last a lifetime.
So if you're feeling that pull towards Austria,
Yeah.
do your research plan ahead, and most importantly, don't be afraid to embrace the unknown.
Austria awaits.
This has been The Deep Dive, and we'll see you next time for another fascinating exploration.